The year is 2232, and architects have finally discovered that Verde Beach exists. Maybe that's not fair. 200 years ago, these towers were built, the very last towers built in downtown Verde Beach. Since then, most of the towers have been about this size. They're fine, but they're not like the skyscrapers of yesteryear. In today's episode, we're going to thoughtfully place some new towers in the downtown Verde Beach area, breathing some new life into this area that has been begging for it for so long. We're going to use the new Skyscrapers Content Creator Pack to bring this area to life. So if you like content like this, please hit the like button. And if you aren't subscribed, please consider doing so. And let's hop right in. This is going to be a good one. Hello, welcome back to City Planner Plays, where we are building the city of Verde Beach. And I'm really excited about today's episode because we're going to finally redevelop some of the downtown and work in some new taller skyscrapers from this new content creator pack that we received. And it's really, really exciting, but I want to talk about our game plan first. I have 33 buildings left to place in the city, and as much as I'd love to place them all at once, that would really make this a rushed build. And I know that because I've tried to record this, I think 4 or 5 times at this point. And every time I'm unsatisfied with the way that it comes out. And the reason why is because I'm trying to do too much too soon. So we're going to really take this into small bits. And to me, that feels more organic. Basically, every site will present its own unique challenge. So we need to be thoughtful about it. We need to take our time. And we need to make sure that what we're doing is going to make sense for the city. Now, here's the way that we're going to do this. Basically, I want to take a little bit of inspiration from this. This is Miami, and Miami has a coast full of towers, absolutely stunningly beautiful, and it's in a climate similar to Verde Beach. So I think it's only fitting that we look at a city like this and use this as some inspiration. Now, what you'll see is that for the most part, the towers are right along the coastline. Now, Miami doesn't have the same beach in this part of their city that Verde Beach does, but we can still take some inspiration from it, have most of our tall buildings right along our last roads before we hit the beach, and really set some of those really tall buildings a little ways back so that things terrace down towards the water. That provides more opportunities for views for a number of buildings, and it makes a lot of sense from that perspective. The other thing that we're going to think about is the areas where towers are going to be appropriate. So we are going to basically come right here from Sterling Zoo Boulevard all the way across to here, where we start with this wharf right here. That is going to be the area where we have these new towers. We could go a little bit further, but I'm concerned that I'm going to obstruct the vistas here. That is not what we want to do. So we're going to place a couple of towers today. Not all of them, just a few. If we get to 5 or 6, I'm happy. And we're going to start out with the very tallest one. The unique buildings are where we house all of these under our content creator packs. We've got to scroll all the way to the back. And the very first building I want to place is this 328 meter tall building from Spain. I love this building. I think it is absolutely stunning. And if we take a look, this is clearly the tallest building. Let's actually place this next to our existing buildings to get a feel for how this stacks up. And we're a little bit lower, and holy cow, it is significantly taller. Multiple stories taller than our existing tallest building, and it is quite a bit taller than our tower here. So we are going to need to give these buildings a bit of space so that we don't crowd this out. I guess there are 2 schools of thought. The first school would be we could keep this building over here so that we come to that crescendo right here. That makes sense. I get it. The other thing would be to spread out the height and fill this entire area in with height. And that's, I think, the route that we're going to go. Now, I want to place this near high capacity transit, and I think we could get close enough. You got to remember, people can walk to transit. So maybe this block here near Haddock and Rose Street and Bass, it's a couple block walk to monorail in either direction in Central Station. It's good enough. Now, the one thing that we're going to need to consider with this is that we have residential that we're going to be taking out. And this building, if we take a look, it is a tourism building, 100 entertainment, and a 450 person visitor capacity. That's what it is. It's not a tower that people can live in or go to work at. And that means that it is potentially problematic for us. If we take out a bunch of residential, we're going to need to replace it. So as we demolish these residential buildings, we're going to need to rezone and increase the density elsewhere, because I don't want the population to drop. So right now we are currently around 182, almost 183,000. Let's dezone this block and see what happens. And you see that we're losing hundreds of people. It looks like almost 400 people have left the city as a result of demolishing this block. So we need to find new homes for those folks, or at least people to replace them if we want to be really dark about it. That's one way to look at it. Now we are going to level this pad. This is a tower. It's going to work best if we have a level pad to work with. Like that. Interestingly, there is a subway line right here. So yeah, all of our transit is within close proximity. It would be nice if there were a stop here built into the building or something. It is a tower. In reality, you could see something like that, but here we're not going to do anything like that. We're just going to tell people to walk. So there's an interesting thing I'm noticing here though, and this isn't anything that we're going to do anything about, but if we look here at our contours, this intersection is the low point. So Waterwood Pond here, unless we had significant drainage pipes here. I wish that I had move it so I could raise this about 2 meters, because that's what I would expect to see in reality. I wish I could go back and yell at 2020 Phil and say, what are you doing, man? Come on, you can't have the low point be the intersection. That doesn't make any sense. But we want to, again, think about how this is going to provide ocean views. So this street on the local street, we get a whole bunch of ocean views. If we were to place this on Bass, you get a bunch of city views, which, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love city views, but I don't think that the city's the star of the show. So we will place this here, and I'm going to not completely center this. We'll give a little bit more space over here. We are not going to take this entire block for this building. We will have some smaller towers, maybe along the base, but we will have some walking space, some seating in the front of it. So let's get that going right now. Ooh, it wants to convert this to a bridge. I don't know why it's doing that. Okay, I do not know why it was getting so cranky at me about this, but for whatever reason, if I go anywhere near the tower, but it bridges, but only in certain locations. It's very bizarre. So regardless, we are going to just need to improvise a bit. So instead of being able to take this and zone in some additional smaller towers around it, we're going to just live with this. So at least we've done something here to make this a little bit more of a space. So let's get some landscaping around here. And I think I'm going to go into our park assets and use some more of these. So the nice thing about this is there are some things that bring some vibrancy to a place like this you might expect to see. I've worked in some taller buildings and they've had kitchens inside, places on the outside where you could go and get a bite to eat. And I think that that's the kind of thing that you might expect to see in an area like this. Okay, so nothing super extravagant, but just a little bit to bring some life into this area. And I'm sure that there is a ton more that we could do, flower boxes and planters and things of that nature. But I like that. I think it's something a little bit different in this area. Now, next, let's grab another tower. And I want to find something that is fairly different. Something that is maybe a little bit shorter that we can bring towards the coast. And, this Turm Park might be a good one. So I like that this has a different shape. It's a little bit shorter, which means that we can get it closer to the water. And I almost like the idea of this being a filler building. Now, the interesting thing about this is you can see it's not all that much different than some of our IT cluster buildings in terms of height. So what we're going to do is just find some of our areas where maybe it just didn't fill in to be quite as dense and locate this in one of those areas. So I'm going to try to take out an IT cluster building or two rather than residential and really not even do a lot in terms of making this fit in. And if we place it appropriately, we shouldn't have to. That was a lie. We're going to need to do something. So let's look at our contours again, and we're just going to pause it for a moment, delete this block, and find a location. This is not my favorite way of approaching this. Oh, look at that. I chose a block with lots of grade challenges. So we are going to give it a go. That's going to mean that we have to grade this out, and then we'll reestablish some of our path connections. Wow. This is a challenging block. Deep regret. Deep regret. At least we chose a smaller building. So let's maximize again our views. This is not it. We've got to place it this way. Should give us the most ocean view. There we go. Now I just want to make sure one other thing. We have this existing building. We're not blocking the view. This tower already blocked the view. So it's okay. It's blocking a view, but it's not that extreme. Now through here, we're going to again rezone, and I'm going to just use paths, hopefully, back through here. Oh my goodness, it let me do it. So I'm going to upgrade these to be some of our terrain leveling paths. That would be quite the slope there, but I think that we can make it work, and we got away with one. Now, I want to, before we lose track of this, we did lose, it looks, it's more than the 400 I assumed it was. It's more like 700 folks had to leave the city as the result of building this tower. While that's filling in, let's take a beat and find a couple of places where we can increase the density. So what that's going to look like is just targeting a couple blocks and increasing the density. So I think that these blocks would be primed, because if you take a look, we've already got density, and this is kind of the transition area. So I would assume that at this point in the city's life, you'd already have developers bringing projects in saying, you know, we are constrained for land. We've got this low density land. Does it really make sense at this point to have a single family home this close to the water? I mean, it might be desirable, but does it really make the most sense? So I think that rezoning these couple of blocks, hopefully we can increase the population, but we've got to account for the population that we are eliminating to build our new towers. So we're gonna let this go for a minute, and I want to see, we've added, I'm gonna call it 3.5 blocks worth of new high density residential. Let's speed this up and see what happens. And we're gonna slow this down, because I've got one more idea. We've got this old playground over here, but we have nothing over here. We've got a cemetery. We should take a look at some of our new assets that we've received from the Plazas and Promenades DLC and see if there's anything that we can work into this area, because I do think it's valuable as you redevelop these areas, as you add density. Think about what the city might want in return, because density does not come just because someone requests it. In fact, in many cases, density comes with some strings attached, and the strings that we're going to have attached are going to be additional parks and plaza spaces. So we are going to actually just wholesale convert a portion of this over. And I really like these fountains. They feel like the kind of thing you might find in a very urban downtown area. And we haven't even had the ribbon cutting for the park yet, and Phillip with 2 L's is already back in town. Why? Because he knows that Hazel will be sitting here at the park and he can steal her password. So how do you protect yourself from creeps like Phillip? By getting NordVPN, which provides a fast and secure internet connection wherever you are in the world. NordVPN has over 5,200 super fast servers worldwide that can help you create a private, secure, safe browsing experience so that cyber snoops like Phillip will not be able to steal your personal info. But wait, there's more. NordVPN can also make the internet more fun, allowing you to access region-locked content by giving you the ability to change your internet location in seconds. Did you know that in the UK you can watch Rick and Morty, The Office, Friends, Young Sheldon, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia? I didn't either until I got NordVPN. If all of this sounds good to you, head to nordvpn.com/cityplanner for a great deal on NordVPN that includes a risk-free 30-day money-back guarantee. That's nordvpn.com/cityplanner. Ooh, and I'm going to call another mulligan. So here's a big one. We have an opportunity to, as we're redeveloping this, think a little bit more conscientiously about the way that this is developing. So if we take a look, this is Somerset. This is a pretty old district, fairly traditional development pattern. Let's do something different here. So what we're going to do is carve out just a portion of this, and we're going to change our theme in this area. We'll make this the homes at Somerset. Just really make it feel like that kind of place. And I think you know what kind of place I'm talking about. All right, so we are going to go ahead and we'll make this residential wall to wall. We're going to lose everything that we just did if we do this right. We'll need to pull it just a little bit further back. Okay, and we have a massive residential demand, or at least we did, but it took a long time for this area to fill in. Let's see what we're looking at right now. We have almost rebounded from a population standpoint, and our residential demand is still medium, so it's kind of interesting that this took so long. That said, these are at the very first level, and there's still space in these. So I think that we've at least provided enough space for this to fill back in and become kind of a replacement for our previous district that was residential in nature and that we took down. So we're going to go through, and I want to add in a bit of decorating, a few decorations in this area since we're in this area already. Okay, nothing too extravagant here, just a couple of trees to liven this place up. And the reason why it's so important is now when you are on this path, I think you really have a feeling of what this place is. It has trees, it feels intimate. It feels like the kind of place that would be a special place to walk on. Now, this is one that we've done nothing to. And look at how this feels. First of all, enjoy your privacy. Wow. You're in your pool in your backyard in your weird little house and your weird pink little house, and your pool with your lawn chairs has a public path behind it. Wow. You know, that's a thing. We're going to have to, we're here. We're going to give them the privacy they always desired. Okay, so a little bit of a story. So I used to live in Los Angeles, everyone knows that, and one of my favorite places to walk in all of Los Angeles was Venice Beach. Absolutely beautiful, but there were blocks like this, where you would have flowers on either side. And as someone that's allergic to bees and generally has an expired EpiPen because they're super, super, super expensive, this would terrify me because I'll be the one guy that gets stung walking through this. So just the thought. So there you go. Now you know that I'm allergic to bees. So here is a very nice place though. I think this would be a very pleasant place to walk. Let's add in a couple more trees. Wow. These buildings are just, they're something else. Okay, I like that a lot more. Obviously, some of the trees are clipping. We're doing what we can, but I think it looks a lot better to have some of these trees in through here. So you've got to get finicky with it in vanilla and really hover over and find where those buildings come together. But you can really make dense forests in a block, and I like the way it looks. All right, and now our population's almost exactly where it was. So let's look back at our second tower. Things are looking okay. It blends in pretty well. I think that this is another area where maybe we add a couple of trees just to hide some of our lumpies and bumpies so we can go to bed tonight and feel good about what we've done. Otherwise, we might feel pretty terrible. All right, now I want to come over here and I've got an idea and I'm not sure how well it's going to work, but we're going to give it a go anyway. So there is a building from Singapore, and this building I think is the perfect bookend for this downtown area. Right here, the large bank building. It's 239 meters tall from Singapore, built in 1984. So it's just a little bit older than me, which is exciting. We're going to get rid of everything happening in this block and look at our zoning because, all right, it's commercial. We can again sleep okay with that knowledge. And let's get rid of all of the landscaping here. All those people just sitting there spawning cars. There we go. We'll get rid of our zoning here. And this is where we're going to place our bank building. This is a challenging location, but I wanted to do this anyway to prove that it's possible. So we'll resume this. And then let's flatten our pad as best we can at sunset. So we could go for ocean. I guess we could go either way. I feel like it's more appropriate to focus this on sunset because our transit is off sunset. So if we were to face the building towards ocean, you're adding on an extra block or two to walk to get the transit. So if you were orienting this building brand new, I think you would look at that and go, well, it's clear that there's one orientation for the building that just makes a little bit more sense than the other. And I think the city would push back on that too. Now, I did see a comment recently on a Nicolay Bay video that talked about all the plopping and the level of control that a planner would have over building design and orientation and just overall the building's look. And I think that there's an easy way to answer this. It's different. It depends on the zoning of the area. So this kind of building would not be allowed by right. So I think that it's kind of fair game. This would probably, so back in the day, there might have been a zoning district that would allow this kind of building, partially by right, partially by city review. Right now, in a lot of places, it's not possible, unfortunately. So you need a planned development, and that means that everything is fair game. Everything. Basically, a planned development allows a developer to create their own zoning district. So what that means is that they come to the city with a packet of materials and they say, this is our zoning. This is what is allowed within this planned development district. These are the materials that would be used. And in some cases, the planned development district says there's one type of building allowed. It is this bank building. It is 20 stories tall, or however tall this is, and it has two different towers on a pedestal right here, and the parking ratio is 292 because that is exactly how many parking stalls are in here. So the parking ratio is whatever it would actually be for this particular structure. So I would think that that's a pretty foolish way to go about it because it makes it difficult to redevelop in the future. You need to change your planned development district to modify this building, but that does happen, where you have a specific planned development coming in, creating a zoning district for a specific building. It's really messy. I think in the long term, it makes it difficult to do things in a city, and that's why I like, but I don't like planned development, and that's one of the reasons why. Now, one of the reasons I like it is the city does have, in exchange for granting this flexibility and allowing a developer to really set the tone for what the development is, the city has the opportunity to get involved in things that maybe it wouldn't otherwise have a say in. So the city says, okay, you want to build this building that is not allowable in any other development district. You want to develop that, and we're going to allow it, but here's what we want in return. And that's where you can see a city planner being able to talk about the types of windows in there, the building orientation, the setbacks in a way that maybe is a little different, maybe talking a little bit more about the architecture. Just an example on projects that I've worked on, it has been the development, the difference between the development having windows on one side of a building and not. I have definitely gone to a developer and said, all right, I could get behind this and recommend in the affirmative at the plan commission and the city council if this change were made. So imagine on this building, if this wall had no windows, there's a reason why the developer might be okay with that. Maybe this is a mechanical room. This is a storage room behind here. Maybe it's where the furnace is, the boilers, whatever. Maybe it's a parking ramp, and it's windows that don't do anything. But on the street level, when you're in the public realm, it feels a lot better. It feels good to be on a street that has windows as opposed to one that has walls all the way around. The safety factor, it matters. So that's where, as the planner, you would be able to say, I could get behind this, but you've got to do this one thing. So that's plan development. And I would assume that for a tower like this, we're looking at that level of scrutiny. And it can get as detailed as there was one development that I was looking at where we got to awning level, where we were looking at the awnings and they wanted a color that was kind kind of wacky, and we said, yeah, that doesn't blend in with the rest of the development around here. And we know that you want that, but that's the one thing. We've heard from other stakeholders that they have a problem with that. They could get behind it and we would support it as well if everyone else is on board and this is the one thing that they want. just give them that one thing. Just give them that one thing and we're all going to be good. Okay, so I wanted to create some sort of retaining wall here because otherwise I don't know how this building works. Now I would assume that the retaining wall would probably be some sort of brick wall and not this riprap looking thing that I put together. But in vanilla, you make do with what you have. And you know, it's not that bad. It's honestly not that bad. And we're gonna line the bottom of the building with some flowers. Yeah, that I can get into. So again, this is why we've got to take our time. Now this building, the reason I wanted to place this here again, I think that it's a nice transition. This leads me to want to place just a couple more smaller towers over here. But I like that the way that we've oriented it means that the taller tower is closer to the downtown core and the shorter tower is kind of on the outside. And I feel like it bookends this well. And if we're looking at this from the coast, just feels nice. And maybe that's not the best reason for doing things, but sometimes you do things because they feel good. And it's city skylines. Isn't that why we do most things? All right. I love this circular, this circular Australia triangle building. This to me, this almost, it reminds me of a very, okay, so this building, I feel like could be next to a very rectangular building and draw a visual contrast. So that's what we're going to try to do is draw that contrast and place that in between these two to bridge this area. Now, again, I want to look at the land uses because if I can, I'd love to avoid getting rid of residential. That said, if you look at this, it looks like it's going to be challenging to do that. So I think we're going to go in this general block. Let's look at our contours. And going up a block might make this an easier project. Now that could save millions of dollars if you were actually constructing this project. So I do think even though we are taking out residential, potentially we might do it. Actually, if we get close to Vine Street and put it on Builder Street, then we are only taking out maybe one residential property. Yeah, that's what we'll do. Oh, I chose wrong. So we're going to go a little bit further back. We'll place this on Burning Street. And I think we're going to be able to get away with one here. Now, since we have used eminent domain to divide this in half, I think that we are going to throw our grid on, place this right down there, and then reestablish our connection. Actually, no, this is a way that we can replace that residential that we're taking away. This is zoned itself to be residential, and we can just add in a little bit here and be in a fairly good place. Now, again, in the previous episode, we talked a lot about shadows. So I do want to take a look at that. Let's just see what we're doing. I think it's pretty unavoidable in this area that we're going to cast some shadows, but we should still take a look and see, because it could influence how close some of these towers are to one another. Because I think having a tower in this general area would be helpful. And this area has basically no shadows. So I'm going to place the tower close to this. So it'll get some shadows, but it won't be too bad. Some of these other areas have a lot of shadows all the time. So yeah, right here, I think this will get some shadowing, but it won't be all that bad. So let's see what we can find. And I don't want this to look like a Wi-Fi bar. So I think we might go with a slightly shorter building here. So let's remind ourselves, this building right here, 228 meters tall. I think we want to go either 228 or maybe a little bit lower. And I like this one. This is the Marshalltown Centre. This is from South Africa, 231 meters tall, very similar to this building from Australia in terms of height. So we're going to go with it. Let's just look at our contours and make sure that it's going to work. It's going to. And what we very well may do is place this one over here, and then down the line, place this shorter one in the front. So especially where we have tall buildings behind, if we have the shorter buildings in the front, we're maximizing our views, but not taking away from the existing structures. I think that's the right way to approach it. And I'm going to pause this so we can look at our zoning. We're taking out a bunch of residential, potentially. I should say it's not potential anymore. I already got rid of it, which, maybe not great, but we've done it. Let's again look at our views. And for this building, it's pretty simple. It's a rectangle. We are going to try to place this close to street level. I'm going to leave just a little bit of space, and we're going to run a path in front of this and behind it and create a little boundary for this property. So we can get away with this because if we take a look at what has happened with our residential growth, we have actually exceeded where we started out this episode in terms of population. So I'm feeling very comfortable now. I wanted to place this here because now we have a little buffer where we can have some landscaping, and it's really going to help bring this place to life. So we're just going to add in some nice date palms. Okay, and now I want to go into the city parks and see if we can add some hedges, which I think if we get it right, it's lumpy, it's bumpy. You know what? We've got to forgive ourselves. Okay, every now and then you do something that you don't realize is going to be quite as complex and complicated as it really will be. And this was one of those things. I wanted to put the flowers along here. They look terrible. I eventually gave up. Then I wanted to place these flowers along here. They're not quite perfect, but they were perfect enough until I got over here, and then they were terrible. So I decided to just line these, which I know bugs some folks, and I am sorry. It's all I've got. It's all I've got right now. It's one of those things where I think that the more you try, the worse it gets. And that's what I was encountering. That said, I wanted to do something, and I think that this is something. There we go. There's one. And I think that we need to take a step back for a second and really start to, ooh, that is interesting. ChirpNet. All right. I didn't see the lettering on there. It's very interesting, but I like what we're doing here. We're layering this, and we're going to need to continue to add layers on. I think we're going to add one more tower, and I want to find a way to bookend what's going on over here, because now at least you're starting to see that it's filling in a bit. And then we got this tower, this one. So let's add closer down here, down Ocean, near Sterling Zoo Boulevard. We'll turn on our contours, and building on Ocean is going to be a real challenge. Building on Sunset isn't going to be much better. If you see, we can look at Sterling Zoo Boulevard, and it actually provides us a pretty good idea of how challenging this is going to be. There's just contour lines all the way up and down. So we are going to give it a go because I'm crazy and I like a challenge. So what I've been wanting to do is there's a lot of discussion in the comments about this building from Poland. This one, the National Trade Center. So this is a building that is 212 meters tall. I believe it's actually a Marriott hotel. So it kind of feels like there'd be some synergy with this area. And if we wanted to bring in some of our towers into our tourism area, this is probably the most appropriate one. That said, it is wide. It is very wide. So we would likely have to relinquish a road to make this happen. So because of that, it's not going to make a ton of sense to go, I guess this would be north of Sterling Zoo Boulevard. We're going to have to go south of it because this road, Pike Place, we could get rid of that. That's not a big deal. The bigger challenge now is the terrain. We're going to try to work with it. And we've also got a lot of residential here. So this is going to be another case where we have to rezone additional residential to make up for everything that we're about to eliminate. So I am not 100% settled on Sunset being the best place to orient this building towards. Now, the reason why I feel that way is we've got our subway station right here. So in light of that, it might actually make more sense. Not a great place to be a pedestrian, but there's a lot of activity, a lot of transit. Yeah, we're going to change it. Sunset is not going to be the focus for this particular building. The other nice thing is then we're orienting the front towards the water. And since this is actually a hotel, I think that makes a ton of sense. And we got real lucky. This actually fits in fairly perfectly here. Now, we're going to need to decorate extensively around here. Not the prettiest. It stinks that there's all these windows that would be looking at the ground. We're going to need to make that not look like that. Reasonably, I wonder if we could put a bridge across here, a pedestrian bridge to hide this a little bit. That could be a way that we make this look a little bit more reasonable. Okay, this was a very challenging project, and making it look even a little bit respectable is really challenging in vanilla. I did my best. I'm not sure that I'm thrilled with this. Yeah, no, I can't do it. We've got one more attempt up our sleeves. And I think that will be a suitable enough way to make this work. So the other thing that we can do is try to fill this in back here. So let's use a mixture of old vanilla bushes and then through the front I'm going to add in some palm trees just to make this look a little bit more deliberate. Now you got to remember, Sunset is basically Main Street in Verde Beach, and what we've done is take the rear of a building with a cliff and make that the front for what you'd see at the street level. You see, you enter Verde Beach in the monorail, and that's what you would see. So not great, but I do think that we have salvaged it. So hopefully that is a better solution, and this will be usable now too. So that is good. I'm good with it. So I am curious. I want to see how all these buildings are performing. So this is 31 folks visited last week. Not too bad. Right here, 41. And over here, 41 again. 39 right here. 39 over here. And 68. Apparently the large bank building is very exciting. So either people are going to use the ATM or, like these tourists, just milling about. I guess this is the place to be. All right. Like in the previous episode, if you happen to know what any of these buildings are, where the actual real life counterpart is, please let me know. Drop a timestamp near where we built this and leave the name of the real building, because I think it's really interesting for us all to be able to learn from each other about the real world locations that these are actually from. And we've got a really diverse mixture of buildings. We have right here Singapore, Africa, South Africa, Australia, Spain, and Poland down here. So a nice little cross section of the world, and I really, really like it. But there's only one way to really take it in, and that is by having a brief city tour. And as much as I love a good city tour, I think the only way to really take it all in is by looking at this at night. And you can get a sense of what we're building towards. There's a presence here. It feels good. This feels like a proper city now. And we're getting some density. We're layering things. And if you were coming in on a boat, imagine how this would feel for you. So let's see if we can get a feel for this. Yeah, that is really something special. It's really something special. And this is why, well, we're going in a place that I didn't expect. All right. So yeah, you start to see what we're building towards, and it feels really good. So I hope that you've enjoyed this. I've really enjoyed taking this on, and boy, oh boy, that's huge. Love that. Love that. I hope that you've enjoyed this. If you did, please consider hitting the like button. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. And I really can't wait to see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.